everybody. Happy Friday and welcome to a special time of the conversation show because my son's school liked to throw off our schedule for today. So thanks for joining us a little bit early today. Today we're talking about something that I'm really passionate about, which is really being an agent of change. And there's so many different we could probably spend an entire show just listing all of the things that a lot of us would like to change in the world. And so one of the really interesting things that I want you guys to kind of just keep your minds open to in this conversation is, what is the change that you feel like you are trying to make in the world? And how can what we talk about in our conversation today apply to the change you're trying to make or the impact you are trying to drive? Because a lot of the core pieces are really the same when we talk about driving change, whether you're driving change in an organization or driving change on a wider national, global scale. There's a lot of people things that come up in that conversation. And I'm excited to have no other than the wonderful Mark Talley here with me today to have this conversation, because he has founded a really amazing organization called Agents for Advocacy. And so we're going to talk a little bit about what being an agent of anything looks like, what advocacy really is, and how can we bring these two things together to create some lasting, permanent change so that the world that our children are living in is a little bit better than the one that we're living in today. So for those of you who are new to the show, please drop any thoughts, comments, questions, perspectives that you have on the conversation in the chat as we go. We love for everybody to be part of this conversation, so make sure your voice is heard as well. We will pull those into the conversation, especially any questions that you have, and let's get into it. So before we deep dive into some of this deep stuff, because let's be honest, we're probably going to go deep today, you guys. Hope you're ready. Friday, go deep. Let's learn a little bit more about Mark and what Agents for Advocacy is. So Mark, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, your organization, and also really why this came to be?
All right, absolutely. My name is Mark Talley. I'm the founder, CEO, president, executive director, all the fancy titles of Agents for Advocacy. I started this organization after my mother was shot dead by a white supremacist at a terrorist attack here in Buffalo, New York on May 14th between the time of 2:28 p.m. to 2:31 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I started this organization to, I tell people all the time, you see your mother get shot on a video that kind of alters and changes your whole demeanor and personality about things around you and in the world. So I wanted to start this organization to try to promote people to have more advocacy in their community, promote socio-economical awareness, equity, and equality. Because I believe there were a plethora of chances legally and just socially that could have prevented this terrorist attack.
Yeah, and I think this is something that we do really need to talk about on a broader level, because I think we can, especially coming from a privileged class, we can just kind of say like, well, we're okay, right? Like, I'm fine over here. I'm not having a negative impact, but I'm also not having a positive impact. And we kind of isolate ourselves and say like, that's enough. And I'm a really big believer that that's not enough. And in terms of, I think, I'll just be honest. I don't understand why we can't all, not that we're all going to be friends. I don't think we're all going to be friends, but that we can't respect another person's space, that we can't respect that someone else has a different experience, a different culture, a different religion, that someone is different than us, and that's fine. And so, Mark, can you tell us a little bit about what are you doing over at Agents for Advocacy to help people, I would say, figure out where they are right now, and then help them to figure out, where can I go so I can have a more positive impact?
Absolutely. Well, right now I'm just doing a lot of branding events in the community. The first event I had was a community barbecue and prayer. I was able to feed over 700 people. The next event I had was a back to school drive for the children in the lower socioeconomical communities. I was able to supply over 500 backpacks filled with folders, notebooks, binders, pens, pencils, calculators, glue sticks, crayons, children's books. It is amazing how more expensive this stuff has got from the last time I was in school.
Right.
The next event I'm currently working in collaboration with is Roswell Park. It's one of the leading cancer institutes in the nation. We're basically talking about in the community the main cancers that affect and are prevalent here in the African American community. I'll be talking about how socioeconomics can impact one's health. The next event I have, I'm doing a Thanksgiving drive in which I'll be once again feeding all the lower socioeconomical communities close to 500 Thanksgiving dinners, along with providing over about 300 produce bags. The last event for this year, I'll be doing a closing drive to help benefit foster care children. The woman I'm working with, Leah Angel Dang. She has her own nonprofit called Fostering Greatness, and she grew up in the foster care center. And she was telling me how foster care children they have to fight for all the clothing that they provide. Come next year, that's when I really want to get stuff hammered into people, start making people uncomfortable and having these tough discussions. Whether it goes into politics, once again, closing, inflation, the wage pay gap, um, gerrymandering, redlining, the amount of funding people in one community gets compared to the other community. Like I said, I plan to make people really feel uncomfortable next year while also trying to teach class to people in the community about stuff that's not taught to us, but to others, and how we're always lacking, as the kids say.
Mm. Well, and I am just a big believer in that. In order for us to change, like if we're going to talk about being agents for advocacy or agents for change, and I love on your website how it talks about agents for change, agents for love, just really an agent for some of these things that is just like, I like to think they're just being good human things.
And that's why I'm getting the website. I'm getting it redone. I'm taking that agent for love out. I always say, like, the people who walked in the tops that day, they had love.
Mhm.
One person had hate in their heart, and that just overpowered everybody in there.
Yeah.
So I'm replacing no more agent for love. Be agent for knowledge, agent for smarts,
Yeah.
agent of being aware of your surroundings, agents of power.
Mhm.
Once
I think
again,
that's an important shift because as much as we would like to believe that love will conquer the day, we have just a little too much proof that that's not true, right? Just like you said, all of these people came in with love. One person comes in with hate and can destroy all of that. And so, how can we improve our knowledge and improve? Maybe we can talk about this. This is kind of a difficult topic, Mark, but I'd love to hear kind of your experience in this, and how do we start to help people? How do I want to phrase this? I think a lot I think a lot of us, I think a lot of the education system, I think a lot of our structures teach humans that we want to be good humans, and if we're wrong, that's bad. And therefore we get really defensive when we think we've done something that's wrong. But in this knowledge journey, inevitably, we're going to make a mistake. We're going to have a perception that has been kind of just like culturally indoctrinated into us, right? And until we know better, we don't know better.
Mhm.
But once we know better, how can we do better? So, in the conversations that you've had, in the events that you've run, what is there something that you see really works in terms of opening up that conversation for people to be like, whoa, I was totally wrong in my perception of this. And in order for me to be an agent for advocacy, for knowledge, for growth, for change, I need to listen, and I need to accept that what I believed before is not actually true.
I'll say getting people out of their comfort zone. I mean, it's a beautiful place, but nothing ever grows there, as they say. I mean, you have people who get stereotypes off of the stuff they see on TV, social media, stuff they hear, or other people's opinion. But until you're actually in that situation, being around the things you say you're afraid of and finding out it's really not that bad or not like it say it is, that's when you can truly start helping and making change. I mean, in some of the events I've did, I've had people come from some of the more higher socioeconomical cities here in the area, Orchard Park, East Amherst, Kenmore, Williamsville. And then once they come to the east side of Buffalo, they see it's not as bad as people make it out to be. You're not going to get shot or robbed every corner that you're at. They get to see that unlike the environments in which they come from, they see there are a lot of people struggling here. And, the idea, meritocracy, picking yourself up by your bootstraps, getting to work, that's basically a false ideologically, however you pronounce the word.
Ideology.
Here we go. Basically, it's a false system that's been fed to the American public and the nation, pre-slavery times. Some of us are born on first base, some are born on third base, and some of us are born already at home plate with a golden baby spoon in the mouth. So you can't judge somebody else's standards until you get to see their standards and see how hard it is. Like I say all the time, equality and equity, they're worlds apart. Like although they're in the same family, they are distant cousins.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think you talked about making people uncomfortable, right? And I think that this is it's not the comfort zone. It's not about being in the comfort zone. This conversation today isn't about being in the comfort zone. It's about getting outside of that and growing and feeling things, right? And not just feeling safe, right? Like I'm feeling safe. But I remember actually, I think it was my good friend Dan Roth, who introduced us actually, who had done a post about how the number one group that benefits from a negative narrative of women of color is white women. And I remember hearing that, and like my immediate response was to be defensive, right? Like, no, that's not true. That can't be true. And then when I was like, oh my gosh, this is totally true. and it doesn't mean that there's something bad about me, right? I'm here, I'm trying to learn, I'm trying to grow. I have a very white middle class upbringing. And so I have a specific perspective that hasn't had these holes trying to be poked in it before. And one of the things that I've learned through my own experience with professional development, personal development, is that there's things I don't know. And when I learn things I didn't know, now I have a greater ability to make better decisions. And so I get really excited about learning things I didn't know, because every time I do that, I get to grow and I get to help people more. And so I think I really like, I'm a baseball fan, so I really liked your analogy about the bases, because I didn't decide what base I was born on, right? I don't get to decide that. But I do get to decide how much time, how much effort, how much energy I put into understanding the baseball field, right? And so if I can make a commitment to saying like, okay, even for, regardless of what base you're on, right? Like if I can say like, hey, I was born on third base and I had like way I'm way ahead of a lot of other people. How can I use that to help me understand, to help other people understand that this is what's going on? Because this, it's just not, the fairness is just not a thing that's happening right now, right? Like on this baseball diamond of life, a fair game isn't what is being played. So how can we get closer to, or at least how, by me being alive and showing up in conversation, how can we get closer to fair play than farther away from fair play? And I think, I don't know, maybe maybe I have a rose-colored version of the world. I think there's a lot of people who want to contribute to fair play, but they don't know how to contribute to fair play. So Mark, what are some of the things, what are some of the ways that people could get involved in Agents for Advocacy that can help them contribute a little bit more to the game of fair play?
Well, I think if people want to get involved, to try to help out in their community, or heck, if they want to help me out in stuff I'm doing in my community, feel free to follow me on Instagram at Agents for Advocacy. Go to my website, agentsforadvocacy.org. You can sign up, just name, email, phone number, and the take action subfield. Now, my website will be getting remodeled thanks to the wonderful Juanita, make it look more professional to compete. But as long as I have your information, I could basically blast you out emails of stuff I'm doing in my community. If you want to try to help your community, it's not that hard. I mean, every place has a ghetto or a poor area. So just try to go out, help. If you have any clothing you no longer wear, donate it to the less fortunate. We just had a crisis, somewhat still going in a crisis with not enough baby food, Enfamil being made. So if you can, try to buy some, give it out to organizations, shelters, facilities that try to help out single parent women to give a formula to their child. But do I think us as individuals can help change the status quo? Absolutely not. That's up to the Congress. That's up to the government. I mean, the status quo right now is making them, unfortunately, billions of dollars. The status quo of what happened with COVID, with a lot of people dying, a lot of people having to stay home. I mean, in terms of Amazon, that just, Jeff Bezos right now, he has enough money. He's trying to just fly into space because he's done everything he could do on Earth. So it's really up to the top 1%ers, the people who we vote in Congress, to make that change here. And unfortunately, as we see through the decisions that they're making, it looks like that's not going to happen for the foreseeable future. We still have people who were born in a time where, black and white were still separate. You have people making decisions in which there was no such thing as the Civil Rights Act. Mm. You have people making decisions. Heck, you have people who probably put in on the decision of the forgot the name of the bill, but back in the late 1970s, they probably voted stating a woman can or cannot get a credit card without their husband's permission. You had people signing on that's still in Congress in the 90s, waging war on drugs, and we lost that war big time. So it's just everything is so intertwined with each other, people in Congress and America, in which covert racism or socio-economical racism is it's like a rope that keeps being intertwined daily, that at this point it's hard to cut. So it seems either two options: either you try to get rid of the whole government, and we see how that's working for South American countries, or we just keep trying to fight and get the right people in Congress. But unfortunately, people are stupid. The saying used to be, a person is smart, people are stupid. Well, Now a person is stupid and people are getting even more stupider. It just seems like the movie Idiocracy or something where
Yeah. If you guys haven't seen, I think, yeah, Idiocracy,
yes, Idiocracy, that's what it is.
hands down the most ridiculous movie. Okay, just imagine, you guys. Luke Wilson, right?
Yep.
Luke Wilson. This is the
And
like
Terry Crews.
smartest person on the planet. No offense, Luke Wilson. We love you. It's fine. But so I want to talk a little bit about this because I know a lot of what you do with Agents for Advocacy is based on events. It's based on this knowledge transfer. A lot of what I do is based on conversations and getting into the conversations that make us uncomfortable, that push us to explore what are our thoughts, what are our beliefs on a specific topic. And we have a lot of structures in place that need to be I don't like to say should be or need to be, but in this scenario I'm going to, that it would be very beneficial for them to be influenced by these types of conversations. One of the reasons why I'm so passionate about having these conversations is so that my 4-year-old son, who is a white male, who has all of the privilege, knows that he has that and can grow his knowledge around what he can do to break down those silos instead of just like, yeah, you could, right? Like you could maintain this racialized patriarchal hierarchy and it would be good for you, but it is not good for the majority of the people on the planet. So when we're talking about fair games, that's not a fair game, right? Like, and I don't like to win by cheating. I like to win by playing a fair game. So how do you see these events, these conversations, this knowledge transfer empowering our youth to potentially, like, you're right, we have people in these like higher level government positions who have, I say this a lot, right? They have no incentive to change. And so how do these types of activities impact our youth? So assuming by the time they get to the point where they are the ones making those decisions, they care more about equality.
Absolutely. I would say there's nothing wrong with being born privileged. I mean, in my way, I was born privileged. I was born, I'm 6'6". When it came to, sports back in my youth, when it came to talking to the ladies at different places, when it came to me working in the corporate world, with the bosses, supervisors, managers, having to look up their head at me, thinking I could be in a leadership position instead of looking down at somebody shorter than them, thinking there's no way this person can probably climb the corporate ladder. I say there's nothing wrong with necessarily being born privileged, but it becomes a problem when you're born and then you start looking down on people who aren't born privileged and wondering why can't they be where you're at. So with my organization, hopefully my goal is to educate those people, let them see once again the world. Although we've been fed this idea that everybody's equal, we can all once again pick up our bootstraps, go to work. Unfortunately, that's a lie.
Yeah.
I mean, you have people who, if they get paid $100 and they live in a food desert, now they have to decide, do I want to pay these, exorbitant prices for, a head of lettuce, some fruits and vegetables to try to eat healthy, and that comes up to over that $100, or would I like to take that $100, go to a Burger King, a McDonald's, a KFC? I can get a big box family meal that day for what, $15? So you have to make these decisions, and these decisions most of the time is unfortunate and could cause you to die earlier.
Right.
So what I try to teach people is don't look at the world through your lens. You have to look at the world through their lens. And the only way you can look at the world through somebody's lenses is you have to go there. You have to spend time, see what they do, what they go through on a daily basis, see all the hurdles and obstacles that they have to climb. Because although it's in the race of life, yeah, we're all in the same race. We all started the same and we're all going to end the same, but it may not be any obstacles in your path. While for me, I may be kind of dodging bricks, rocks, and people throwing knives at me to hopefully try to get to where you're going.
Mm-hmm. I don't know why I just got the vision of that steeplechase race where you have to like jump over the hurdle into the water. And then I'm like, how do they run in their shoes when they're wet? Right. And these are the things that we don't really talk about. Like, I'm just running laps, right? And I hate running laps. But there are people who are jumping over hurdles and getting their shoes wet and all of these things that make it harder to go the same distance. And if we don't accept that that is true, just like, again, it only benefits us, right? It only benefits my individual self to not accept that that is true, because then what I win is that I rank higher. And like, who's winning? Like, what if you're only winning in your head, right? This isn't actually a thing. I want to pull in some of what Knox is saying, and he said a whole bunch of things here. You can see it covers our entire faces, but I'm going to pull over a couple of things. Because like we've talked a lot about race today. Knox has added in some pieces about truth and reconciliation. So, Knox is Canadian. I'm also Canadian. The white people have done some terrible things to the Indigenous people. It's truth and reconciliation is an attempt to apologize, but there is a long way that we have to go to help that. Neurodivergent.
You're alone. I'm about to move to Canada.
Yeah. Yeah, we're pretty good. But like, we've made some bad decisions. People make bad decisions, and this is the thing, right? Like, the thing that I'm really passionate about when it comes to like truth and reconciliation, thing that makes me angry is I went to school my entire life. I went to private school, I went to public school, I went to Catholic school, I went to all the school systems, and in none of the school systems did I learn anything about Indigenous culture, like how we came to be here. Right, on these lands. They don't teach it, right? So I, as a 6-year-old, 8-year-old, 12-year-old, whatever, like I go and I learn the curriculum, right? That's what's expected of me. And they're not giving me the information in the curriculum. So it's feeding into, not helpful. Not helpful.
That's the problem. Most people don't know their own culture. Mm-hmm. So they try to group all of us into a color scheme. Mm-hmm. So you're white, you're black, you're light skinned, you're this and you're that, instead of, you know what, I'm Irish, I'm European, I'm German, I'm Nigerian, I'm Libya. So a lot of people confuse their color for their heritage. Mm-hmm. And when doing that, you kind of basically starting the beginnings of racism, to hate those who aren't the same shade of skin as you are. And this isn't a problem in the non-BIPAC communities, but in those BIPAC communities, there's a lot of colorism going because people don't know their own heritage, instead of they just know their own color, their own race.
Right. Well, it's really interesting to me, because what I know about the human brain is the human brain likes to put things in buckets that it understands, right? So it has these like predefined, okay, you fit there, I fit there, buckets of understanding. But that doesn't really work for humans, right? It works for subjects. Like, this is math. This is like painting. This is geometry, right? Okay, fine. Use your human brain to stick those types of things into those buckets. But humans, the types of buckets that we've created for humans, it doesn't actually help us build relationships with people. It doesn't help us understand people. It doesn't help us communicate better with people. I read a post earlier on LinkedIn about how the Gen Zs have canceled the thumbs up emoji. And I'm like, I use the thumbs up emoji all the time. And it was interesting for me to read it, because apparently Gen Zs use this as a now the word is escaping me, but it's in jest. They use thumbs up in jest, and like a lot of the older generations use thumbs up as a yes, let's go. And I was just like, do all millennials do that? I don't know. Do some baby boomers use thumbs up in jest? Probably. And it's just when we put these people in the buckets that historically we've created for humans, it just really isn't helpful. This was the comment I had, is I'm like, I actually had an employee who told me, I used to use smiley face as a like a smiley face emoji as a yes. And I remember her asked, she was like, can you please not do that, because I do not know what you mean when you send a smiley face as a response. And I was like, no problem, right? Like, this is a human to human interaction, and you don't understand what I'm saying when I do that, so I can adjust. But if we don't have that conversation, then we can't really, like, we can't grow, we can't do something different. Which is why, again, I'm so passionate about conversation. But I do want to get back to what Knox is saying over here, because he has a really great question. He says, where were some of the common places you go to check your own perception or biases? Do you have somewhere you go to check your perceptions, Mark?
It's kind of different for me. I kind of grew up in the area people didn't want to go to. But you know what, here, the area I moved to, it was there's a lot of I don't know, the terminology keeps changing nowadays. It's non-binary, binary, cis, LGBTQIA. I think that was all of them. But it was a lot of people like that in the area, and I really did have no problem with none of those people. But I wanted to see what is it like for them, because like when I watch on TV, and it's like, you see it's a lot of those people talking about violence against them, a lot of non-representation of them in movies or on TV shows, a lot of the stuff that they have to go in their own private lives. So being around the area in which I'm in, you kind of see it. I mean, it was just an article a couple months ago how I believe a trans woman just got stabbed. And it's just kind of sad. People who you don't know will just stab you over their gender. I mean, although it's one thing, people stabbing you over the color of your skin, although that shouldn't happen as well, that was molded here in the history of America. But now you're just walking around nowadays trying to find a trans man and trans woman to kill them. And I don't see why just people don't let people live. Like I'm not about to walk to try to find a trans man, trans woman, a gay man, a gay woman, because I don't like them or understand the plight that they're going through. So looking at that community and everything, what they got to go through is definitely more endearing. Like what new show they have about with I think the gay P Valley or something with the gay characters. You just seeing so much of this hate towards them showing gay scenes, and it's like, where's all this hate coming from? You are choosing to watch this show. You know this show has gay characters. You know this show has gay scenes. Why are you so homophobic towards it when you can just turn the channel? And it's just sad how society's always been like this, but now it's starting to be spotlighted more. You just start seeing the unfiltered lenses in which hate is spewing out of people because of what they don't like. And unfortunately, that's been the history of not even America, the world. People hate and can't comprehend what's different from them and what goes against the Bible, even though the Bible has a lot of homophobic things in it. I mean, even one of the biggest Christian holidays, Christmas, that started out as a gay pagan holiday. So it's, I don't know, it's ironic. People, like I said, a person used to be smart, people are stupid. A person is stupid, people are becoming stupider.
Well, and I think there's this really interesting split between like curriculum. Like we were talking about this earlier, right? Like I didn't learn anything about the actual history of Canada. That was just not in the curriculum. And like that curiosity about learning, right? When it comes to humans, there's no right way to be a human. There's no right gender. There's no right sexuality. There's no right color. There isn't a right. It is, right? We are different colors. Have different genders. We have different sexual preferences. We have different brains in terms of neurodiversity, right? We all 7.9 billion people on the planet are all different. We're all different. And so it's not bad. I talk a lot about belonging, right? It's not bad to find a place where you belong. And we don't all belong in all places. That's not the point either. But it's about not saying that my place or the people in my place are better than the people in your place because we live by this methodology, or we believe in this type of God, or we live within these national boundaries, or however we like to decide we're better than other people. We just are different, and different is not bad. And I think this is one of the most important narratives I think society needs to break down, is that as long as we're afraid of different, there will be hate of different. But if we can break down the narrative of different is just different, it's not bad, it's not wrong, and it also isn't an attack on us. Like, it's not an attack on me. It's an opportunity for me to learn and grow and explore, and be able to be like, we are the human race, right? If anybody is going to destroy the planet, it's going to be us. but is that really what we're going for? Right? I don't think that anybody, well, maybe there's a handful of people in the world that that's their goal, but in general, that's not the goal of humans. And if we can just look at why, take a step back and say, like, okay, for whatever reason, I walked into this Black neighborhood and I felt afraid. Why did I feel afraid? Did I feel afraid because I was actually in danger? Did I feel afraid because the narrative that I've been taught since I was a small child told me I should be afraid? Like, why am I afraid? Instead of just being like, I'm afraid and that's bad and I'm the victim, so then you're the bad guy, and it doesn't help. Victim mentality doesn't help anybody. It doesn't help us learn. So I think that there's so much. One of the things I just want to address, the other part of Knox's question too, because for me, I'm very active in looking for conversations. Knox had a point here about helping to find ways to create safe spaces to have honest conversations about what the truth is, right? And this is just it, right? Like, ages ago, my ancestors came to this country and conquered a bunch of people who were here first, and then said, we're going to own this, and you guys can have this tiny little bit, and you'll be super happy about it because we didn't kill all of you. I would have made a different decision if that was me and I was arriving in a new place. I would not have done that, but I can't change what they did. But I also can't prevent that from happening again if we don't talk about what happened before. And so I feel like it's so important for us to create this split between what is the truth and am I responsible for that? Because most of us aren't. Most of us are like 5 generations removed from the people who made these decisions, right? We might make different decisions, but we won't make different decisions if we don't know the bad decisions that our ancestors made. And if we
I
can't,
think people don't care about the truth anymore. I think people only care about what goes along with their ideology. There we go.
yeah,
I mean, you have people who live and die by Fox News, people who live and die by CNN or MSNBC. You have people who get their medical advice from, Trump and Joe Rogan. I mean, so that's what I think it goes back to what you were talking about with what's being taught in school in their curriculum. If people feel that they didn't get it then they go search out for it, and what they think sounds the best, they go with it.
yeah. And I think one of the things that I'm really passionate about, I actually hosted a conversation earlier this year called Your Experience is Valid. And I think that for me, that's just the crux of all of this, right? Is that I can pretend that what I learned in school is the truth. And part of what I learned in school is the truth. And it's not the whole truth. And that doesn't make me a bad person because I didn't learn it in school, right? I don't control the curriculum. I learned what I was taught. And now I can learn more because I can listen to more people. But again, I think we often choose to just take a stand, to have a position. And it's actually really funny. This is maybe a funny example, but my husband, he's a very even-keeled most of the time. But one of the things that drives him nuts is flat earthers. And he's like, there's so much science that says the world is round. Why are there still people
I agree with him
who believe the earth is flat? And it was interesting because I was like, well, if they believe the earth is flat, it doesn't really hurt me, right? Like, them go have their club over there and think the earth is flat, then that's fine. But one of the things that really came up for me in that conversation, that I think is the crux of the problem, is that if I think the earth is flat, just so you guys know, I do not think the earth is flat. I'm just taking a side for sake of example. If I think the earth is flat and you, Mark, think the earth is round, and I just show up and give you all of the data that tells us that the earth is flat, and I don't listen to you, then I actually think that I don't deserve to have my opinion heard. Because if you can't listen to another person's experience and believe that it has the same amount of value as yours, and say yeah, okay, really, if I believe the earth is flat, then it doesn't actually hurt. It's not hurting anybody, so whatever. But if I don't listen, then what voice do I get to have? It's not really fair.
I say it's like, how do you have a conversation with somebody who says 2 + 2 = 5?
I'm like, interesting. Tell me more. This is the number one thing I learned from Dale Carnegie training is just tell me more. And you know what? I will tell you why. Because I cannot think of the example off the top of my head. Oh, this is a good example. Any of the parents in this will love this. So my son, who was probably about 2 at the time, and we were watching the Olympics, and they're sponsored by Toyota, right? So it's all these Toyota commercials. And my son is like, we have a Toyota. And I was like, no, we don't. We don't drive a Toyota. And he's like, yeah, we do. We have 2 of them. And I'm like, well, we have 2 cars, but no, we don't have a Toyota. And he got so frustrated with me. And he walked to the other room, and he came back with a stuffed animal toy Yoda. From Star Wars. And I was like, oh, okay, you're right. We do have 2 Toyotas, if that's what you're talking about. And so it was just a really interesting experience for me, because what I learned was that he was right and I was right. But we weren't quite speaking the same language because our experience was different. I was watching the car commercial. He was just listening, Toyota. And so we're actually both right. And I think that when we can create that space to say hey, what if, you guys who watch the show often will know that I say this often. I love a good what if, right? What if we're both right? What if we are? What if your experience is true? And what if my experience is true, which I believe to be true? Then we learn all of the things that happened in both of the experiences. And now we know we have more information. on what the actual experience was. Like, I'm sure everybody has had this too. Have you ever had like two different people who had like an argument with each other, and they come to talk to you, and you're getting like one story from one person and one story from another person, and they're not the same story, and you're like, pretty sure the truth is somewhere in the middle of this. But because everybody's just like taken their side and said, no, either I'm right or you're right. But when it comes to human experience, I just don't believe that that is a thing.
No, like I said, it goes back to humans are becoming stupider. Like, I don't think humans really care. People really care about the truth anymore. People only care about what makes them feel happy or what they think is right.
Mhm.
I mean, I highly doubt if I believe the flat earthers, they know the truth, but do they want to have this conversation in which they can be factually proven with somebody that the earth is round? Because they finally got a group of people like a family or a neighborhood that makes them feel important or cared about. I mean, a study got done that the majority of people who are flat earthers, they are also on the far right spectrum in terms of politics.
Hmm. I think this is interesting because I believe in belonging, right? And I think it's great for people to have spaces where they feel like they belong. But when did we start trading belonging for truth? Or when did we start making belonging dependent on truth? Right? So now the only place I belong is in my I'm actually going to apologize in case anybody out there is a flat earther. We just picked you as an example, and I feel really bad, but it's
No, here, any flat earthers watching this, come for me. I
Talk to
always
Mark.
choose violence. You can come for me. Don't come for Tracy. We can have this.
But I think it's important to find those spaces where you belong and you feel safe, right? But if we're feeling safe based on an ideology that hurts other people, then I think our belonging is screwed up. Because we get there's probably going to be a lot of people who are like, you went so political with this, but I really believe this, right? So if I'm just going to join like a white, actually, I'll use this example because this drives me nuts in the entrepreneurship arena. The women entrepreneurs clubs, I don't know why it drives me nuts, but anything that's targeted at only women entrepreneurs drives me nuts because I feel like I don't want to just hang out with women entrepreneurs. I can only learn a certain thing from them. I want to learn from all people, and that's my perspective, and that's why I do different things with my community. But it drives me nuts because I don't want to just be in that club. I'm only in this club because I'm a woman. I didn't even get to decide that, right? Like that was just the gender assigned to me at birth by science and whatever, however all of that happens, right? Like I don't want to enter a club just for that. I want to enter into belonging based on a feeling that I have with people. And it's not based on, like, for me, it's not based on gender or color or age or any of those things. It's just based on my peeps. You call them my peeps.
There's something what drives you crazy. I ain't gonna let you be on that boat alone.
Yeah.
Stuff that drives me crazy, especially since I'm starting to see it more on LinkedIn, even post about it, is people who are trying to over advocate for things people aren't even asking for. And I kind of compared to people want to have the Black struggle experience. There was some woman on here, and she was talking about how horror movies go after disabled people. And the people who she had listed was Freddy Krueger. I mean, like, really, sometimes the over advocating is just too far. I mean, I have yet to see in my 33 years of living, I think the terminology got changed. I don't think it's disabled no more. So I apologize. I don't know the new name, but I've never seen a disabled person walking down the street with, what is that, knives he has? Like, same thing with Edward Scissor saying. I have yet to see somebody walking around with, scissors for their hands. And so I think sometimes we have a tendency as society, we want to go so far. And this is why I think a lot of people are moving towards the far right, is because they're getting sick of the far left, how it's starting to go way too far with stuff we're trying to advocate for that nobody's asking about. I remember the Indian guy from Apollo. No, the Simpsons. They got rid of the Apollo character. I think that's what his name was, the grocery store clerk. And
Oh, yes.
and it was like a lot of Indians online that was saying like, we ain't asked for this. This not going to help us out in terms of what we want. And it's like with the one of the Simpsons one of the Family Guy characters, he didn't want to portray the voice of a black character anymore. And it's like, we as a black community we didn't ask this. We had stop having the police, kill us when we get pulled over. Let's get our wage increased up to, at least come close to the average, and we're okay. You're not voicing a black hair. I mean,
Yeah, this is. I'll tell you, I don't know if we talked about this before, but and we will start wrapping this up right away. I was like, we'll be on for 30 minutes. Too much to talk about. But I had this experience in my corporate work environment too. When George Floyd was murdered, and the company, like, let's just call it what it was, wanted to jump on the Black Lives Matter train. And I was like, if I feel like this was a real thing that we believed, then I would be okay about posting it on social media. But at the time, we employed no Black people, right? And I was like, I'd be super happy to use this opportunity to have a conversation about maybe how our hiring practices are being discriminatory. But like, I'm not just going to post a thing on social media that says Black Lives Matter when I don't believe that to be true, right? Like, I believe that to be true, just to be clear. But like, the company didn't show up caring about that every day. This is not a bandwagon to jump on. Okay. This is, if you want to use these conversations as an opportunity to like switch your mindset and be like, wow, I really haven't even thought about this before. How could we make this more lived in our company experience? Then great. But just don't post something on social media to jump on a bandwagon here. That doesn't actually help, because then it looks like there's a whole bunch of people being advocates for change, except they're faking it. So don't fake it, you guys. I know it's a hard conversation, and it's uncomfortable. And even, I'm sorry, you guys, I have not kept up with the chat today because we've just been like so in this conversation.
That's LinkedIn in general. It's a lot of bandwagoners on LinkedIn.
Yes. And there's like, I really just want to appreciate, though, we had Knox, we have Vanessa, who shared some amazing things about people being afraid of the truth, because it can portray us in a negative light, which is true. Christopher is here talking about how it's not about agreement, it's about understanding. Lydia is here sharing her experience as well. And you guys, and I think we had Debbie Potts as well. Debbie Potts, I love you and I miss you. We need to have a conversation soon. But I just want to celebrate all of you. And Dan snuck in right at the end here. Yes. Who doesn't prefer Canadians? Just saying. But this is a hard conversation. That's the point, right? It's like, I like to show up, and I've done some more. We did a Ignite Your Enthusiasm episode last week, and it was a little bit more lighthearted. But at the end of the day, you guys, for me, I believe in personal brands. I believe in people owning their story, in believing in the value of their own experience. I believe that we are not working on an even playing field right now. And I believe in doing what I think I can to make that different. And that means having hard conversations. It means having hard conversations in public. It means having creating spaces to have these conversations. And that's something I celebrate that Mark is doing on an ongoing basis. And it's something that all of you in the chat here today participated in. You participated in a hard conversation today. And every time you do that, it makes it a little bit easier to show up and do it again. And when we get to live by example, and we get to have a conversation where we don't all agree on everything, that's not the point, but we can listen and we can understand and we can grow as humans because we took the opportunity and the time to do that. I think that that is a thing that all of us can contribute to our workplaces, to our communities, and that at the end of the day, maybe I'm a little more rose-colored glasses than Mark, but one day our kids are going to be the people who are leading countries. And if our kids believe a different narrative, then we have the opportunity to create something really different for everybody. So I'm gonna just challenge everybody to say, what can you do today to make that a little bit better? Go ahead, Mark. What would you like? What last thoughts from you today?
My last thoughts. I'm debating to say something very poetic and quote fulfilled or to say a joke. I don't.
Or you could say both. People can choose what they want to end on.
No, I'll just no here. Just go add me on Instagram, Agents for Advocacy. Go to the website, agentsforadvocacy.org. Click the Take Action sub field. Just sign up to become an agent. Come next year, you'll be getting a ton of emails about stuff I'm currently doing. I haven't kept up with the website currently because I'm extremely busy with these events. So that's why I'm having somebody build a website to manage it for me. But once again, just go on there, take action, put your name, email, phone number, anyone you like. Thank you, Tracy, so much for having me. Love to be on. I kept my dark humor stuff. I kept it low.
So if you want some more of the dark humor, make sure you connect with Mark. And he is linked on this event. So you can just click on his name and you can find him on LinkedIn. And you can find all of those links as well on there.
If you would like a Dan Roth dark humor joke, feel free to DM me. I already have one set up.
There you go. So especially if you're a Dan Roth fan, make sure you do that. Awesome. Thank you, everybody. You know what? I'll be honest with you. I was a little bit nervous. I was like, I don't know where this conversation is going to go. And that's one of the things I love about this show. But one of the things that's also like kind of nerve-wracking about the show, because you don't know where you're going to go. But we hit some deep things today. And I'm a huge fan of doing that because, again, that's how I believe we learn to grow. And for those of you who are new here, although I think most of you are people who returning guests, one of the things I believe about conversations, one conversation is good, but it is not where we need to go. In order to make the impact we want to make, we have to stay in the conversation. So if being an agent for advocacy is something that your whole body is saying, yes, I need to do, go to the website, sign up, get connected to all of the other people in the chat. If you guys aren't connected to each other, these are the types of people who are trying to have these hard conversations, who are trying to bring them to light, who are trying to create change. And when you can surround yourself, let's be honest, peeps, creating change, not the easiest thing to do. Mark even told us it is not possible for us to do it on our own. And it's a lot easier to do when we have a community of peeps who are all trying to make change in their own unique way. We're not all going to drive change in the exact same way, but when we're doing it together on those hard days, it can make it feel a lot easier. So connect with each other, connect with us. We are all about this conversation and continuing.
Oh, and add me on LinkedIn if we aren't connected.
Yes, add Mark on LinkedIn and add me on LinkedIn if we're not connected. Let's all be connected on LinkedIn.
Add us all on LinkedIn.
Add everybody. Well, don't add everybody on LinkedIn because that won't help you, but add all of the peeps who are in this conversation, because you guys know what? This is something that's really interesting to me, because I hear a lot of people still who are like, just see all this stuff on LinkedIn that I don't want to see. You guys know that you control that by the people who you connect with and follow, right? Connect with the people who are in the conversations that you want to be in. And that's what helps you stay in the conversation, because you see what they're saying. Then you get to comment, you get to post, and then they get to comment on you. This is how we create movements. So Let's all get connected and let's all work together to be the best agents for advocacy, agents for advocacy that we can be. Thank you everyone for joining me today. Thank you so much, Mark, for joining me today. Make sure you all get connected. And until next time, everybody, permission to do you.